It is not uncommon to find remains of deceased animals on a walk in the woods. What's weird is when those remains don't look like anything we remember from biology class. It's January 17th, 2019. Art student Kohei Katawaki says he is hiking through the dense woods near his home in Chichibu City, Japan, when he comes upon a figure that is totally alien to him. The footage and photos show what looks like the skeletal remains of some creature, but what? As we zoom in for a closer look, we can see it has strange, long, twisted talons. Its spine is severely bent with a bone structure that looks almost bird-like. But then there's the head, which is more square-shaped, which conjures the image of Hollywood extraterrestrials. And we see 2 rows of yellow humanoid-like teeth. It's no wonder Kohei was compelled to post the video online.
Obviously, one theory about this thing is that it is not of this world. There are things about it that are very E.T. by way of a giraffe. It does sort of have the head shape that a gray alien might have.
As we mentioned earlier, gray aliens are the most frequently cited extraterrestrials in reports of close encounters and abductions, such as the famous Barney and Betty Hill abduction claim from 1961. They described grays as having small, hairless humanoid bodies with large heads and black eyeballs. These remains fit that description somewhat, but there are other possibilities as well.
Maybe this creature is the result of radiation fallout. Japan was the site of 2 nuclear detonations in World War II, and more recently there was the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, which was rated a number 7 on the International Nuclear and Radiological Event Scale, which was the same as Chernobyl.
A lot of speculation on this one. There was even buzz that it was some kind of biological experiment gone wrong. The obvious explanation is that it's a hoax, but gray alien sightings are always a hot topic. So we'll give this figure its day in court. First, we take the footage to anthropologist Kathy Strain, who has researched accounts of gray aliens. So how does this corpse compare?
When people talk about the grays, they usually bring up that there's little ones and there's big ones. And the larger ones have very long necks and they're very skinny. And this doesn't really look like that because the proportion with the long neck and the head isn't correct for it to be one of the taller grays. The legs should be much, much longer. The arms should be much longer. Everything should be scaled upward in size.
What about the nuclear radiation theory?
The chances that the skeletons are still out in the wild is unlikely.
Raccoons eat dead animals, and they are so prevalent in Japan, their overpopulation is causing a national hubbub. In the past decade, the country's raccoon population has tripled. Strange says any corpse decomposing in the woods outside Chichibu since the 2011 Fukushima disaster would have been picked apart by wildlife scavengers. And she points out something else that bothers her.
Its eye sockets are too small to actually have an exterior eyeball. You may be born without physical exterior eyes, but you would still have human-sized eye sockets below the skin.
Microphthalmia is a phenomenon in which someone's born with 1 or 2 eyes that are very small. The eye sockets on this creature are small, but they appear too tiny even for a creature with microphthalmia. Biologist Floyd Hayes is also skeptical that these remains ever belong to a living being.
There are ways in which we could change the morphology of animal, typically by giving it an extra limb or a digit or even a head. But to get something to change so dramatically, like the entire head shape, so it's sticking out on both sides or a much longer neck, that's much more difficult to do.
Hayes is left with one remaining possibility.
I believe this is a hoax.
Given that none of the theories seem to hold up, we tracked down Kohei in Japan. And when pressed, he admitted the alien corpse is a project he created for his studies at Tokyo University of the Arts.
それも、その父親の買ってきたその本っていうのもインスピレーションの一つにあると思いますし、絵本がインスピレーションのもとに結構いっぱいあるのではと思ってまして、やっぱり心のどこか 1-2% では本気で、宇宙人とかってやっぱいるんじゃないかなって信じてるんですよね。なので。
So, mystery solved. This was a clever hoax. Exciting as it may be to imagine stumbling upon an alien skeleton during a hike in the woods, this figure just doesn't cut the mustard. April 20th, 2022, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Urban explorer Christopher Brian Hill is documenting himself navigating a sewer tunnel system deep within the forest. He records an almost 5-mile trek when he comes across this. What looks like a glowing-eyed being emerges from alongside the tunnel's edge. The being seemingly stares at the camera, then another smaller one steps further into the light, revealing its body. The beings turn and flee. Christopher advances to where they were, but they've vanished deep into the darkness. Let's take a closer look. Note that when the second creature turns to run, its foot appears to make a splash in the water.
I heard what sounded like a slapping, like smacking water. At the time, I thought it was a deer. I really didn't think much of it until I played it back and I got home and I could see the outline.
Let's look at that being emerge from the tunnel's edge again. The reflecting light reveals its odd body shape. Field researcher Cliff Barrickman helps us understand what we just saw.
You walk into creepy places at night, you're probably gonna run into something creepy, and this fits the bill. It's long, it's lanky, the arms are touching the ground, it's got glowing eyes.
Thousands have seen this video, with many claiming it's proof of the lizard man, first sighted in the 1980s. The creature yielded a wave of newspaper, radio, and television publicity, especially in South Carolina.
The lizard man. It's often reported as being black and scaly, maybe with long claws and glowing eyes. One of the most famous sightings of this so-called lizard man came from Bishopville, South Carolina. In late June of 1988, a young man was driving home in the wee hours of the morning when he observed a 7-foot-tall scaly creature in a swamp. And it drew national attention and made it on the news with Dan Rather. This video, if authentic, shows something bipedal inside the sewers.
Barrickman suggests there may be a more pedestrian explanation.
In the 1980s in New York City, a lot of people found themselves without homes. Some of these people actually moved to the subterranean sewers and started living there. And that is where the term mole people came from. Times are tough. Maybe people are starting to take shelter underground there as well.
The mole people theory is truly heartbreaking, and the lizard man theory is truly bizarre. According to the bystander who supposedly encountered the lizard man in 1988, the creature chased him down in his car, jumped on the roof, snapped the front fender and antenna, and tore into the sides of the vehicle. Did Christopher narrowly avoid such aggression? Let's see what our experts have to say. Could the theory that these are desperate humans living in the sewers have legs? Conger says the eyes have it.
These creatures look like they have kind of a white-colored eye shine.
That white color is due to something called the tapetum lucidum, which is a biologic reflector system that is a common feature in the eyes of many nocturnal vertebrates.
The tapetum lucidum is developed as an adaptive feature for dark environments. It actually reflects light and makes the environment easier to see for that animal. Humans don't have a tapetum lucidum, so I think it's very unlikely based on this footage that we're looking at people.
So what about that lizard man theory?
Because reptiles are actually exothermic or cold-blooded, they often don't move a lot and spend a lot of time laying down on warm surfaces to regulate their body heat. They have very slow metabolisms.
Conger further notes that most reptilian creatures walk on 4 legs due to the fact that the metabolic demands of walking on 2 legs would require more energy than a cold-blooded physiology can supply. So if it isn't human and it's unlikely that it's reptilian, then what is it?
Based on everything that I'm seeing here, I think this is some sort of a hoax or CGI.
Time to take the video to forensic video expert Michael Primo to determine if this is indeed a fake.
When we adjust the intensities of these macro blocks, we can see clearly that these gradients around these pixel values have been smoothed. When we get to the point where these 2 eyes essentially travel back behind this edge, the compression changes completely. There's no smoothness to these gradients. The compression level shouldn't have changed that drastically. This video has been fabricated in some way, shape, or form.
The verdict? This is a hoax. While we didn't find anything hiding in the sewer this time, The deepest urban sewage tunnel measures 551 feet below ground level in Hong Kong. So there's still plenty of exploring to do. Havia Iloilo, Philippines. A CCTV security camera rolls on a warm July evening in 2021. The camera captures a dimly lit street where a woman, later identified in the news as Mary Lou, sits in front of her home cleaning dishes. Unbeknownst to Mary Lou, a stranger approaches from behind. Then quickly, and as quietly as she arrives, the woman continues down the street, reaches a tree, then she seemingly folds over, dropping to the ground. The woman begins to crawl on all fours back towards Mary Lou. Terrified, Mary Lou stands up and threatens to throw a bucket of water at her. The woman turns and runs away. Watch again. This moment, some people say she doesn't just bend over, but transforms. A week later, another alleged sighting in the same village captured on a second CCTV camera. This time, the person or creature switches between crawling and hopping. As we push in, we see a woman exiting her home, then jumping back in shock.
It doesn't look like an earthly sort of creature. The legs are bent in weird directions, and there's this long neck right there.
Field researcher Cliff Barrickman says the sightings made local news, with some believing the video captured a famed Filipino creature known as the Aswang.
One of the many stories about Aswangs is that during the day, they're just like people. They're people in your village that you may even know. But after night falls, they shapeshift. They have this proboscis tongue for lapping of blood. They go down on all fours and change their shape and turns their legs around in weird positions. Aswangs are said to be responsible for miscarriages in the community, or really anything bad, like a child dies of some disease. It's kind of the catch-all boogeyman. If you want your kids to behave, it's like, don't go out there, Aswangs are out there.
The Aswang are believed to take the forms of vampires, were-dogs, and witches. It's said they can be warded off by salt, ash, or urine, depending on whom you ask. Is this mythical creature what we're seeing here? We'll need to ask our experts. Biology professor Floyd Hayes applies what's known as kinematics to the second video, the study of animal locomotion.
This creature appears to be quite flexible in its mode of locomotion. It appears to be hopping and transitioning between being quadrupedal and bipedal, unlike what's been reported for the Aswang.
Next, he turns to the creature's anatomy.
In my opinion, the body proportions are very similar to a human. The hind limbs appear to be much longer than the forelimbs, and the feet are pointing forward.
When we line up these proportions with that of a human, that certainly looks like a match. As for the head
is rather obscure in the image, but it looks as though it actually removes a hat as it exits the video.
Anthropologist Kathy Strain believes some legends are legitimate sightings of real creatures, but she's skeptical of this particular clip.
This could be a hoax because as the creature comes to this tree, it pops up and it looks over to see if this person is coming out of their door. That is more human-like, and because they want to make sure they're seen.
If it's a fake, Strain thinks it might be serving a higher purpose.
Folklore has a place in society to teach certain skill sets or certain beliefs.
Mythology across all cultures serves to reinforce cultural norms, such as the imperative for children to stay inside at night.
They get them home on time, to be generally afraid of strangers.
And indeed, we tracked down the guy who made the second video, and he admitted he staged the stunt after being inspired by the first Mary Lou video. Not for fun, but to help with COVID quarantine compliance during the pandemic.
After I saw that video, I was thinking that it might be an inspiration for me to do the hoax. So I did the video for the community purposes, just to force the children to stay inside of their home because it was in the midst of pandemic. This is actually the mask that I wear on that time.
So that may explain the second video, but what about the first one that inspired it? Is it possible that an actual Aswang is responsible for terrifying Mary Lou in the alley?
When this lady comes back towards her and gets down on all fours, she's behaving like a typical Aswang, according to Filipino folklore. She's now gone into a different state where she's no longer human, and her trying to get closer to her without being seen indicates to me that she meant that lady harm. but you don't have a clear view of what she looked like once she was totally down on the ground. It's kind of dark, she's behind a fence. I'm willing to say that I don't really know what happened there.
So we have a split decision. We know the second clip is a hoax, but we can't say that for certain about the first. Aswangs are traditionally women, and while we don't know this woman's intent or state of mind, we do know she was crawling, and Mary Lou was genuinely frightened. We'll stay on the lookout for any future Aswang sightings. July 23rd, 2011, in a suburb just outside of Portland, Oregon. Thomas Collins hears strange noises emanating from an abandoned house on a property adjacent to his parents' home. He enlists a good friend to join him in his investigation.
This is Andrew.
When the two discover this.
There it is.
There's a high-pitched howl.
Be cautious.
My camera's having a really hard time picking this up.
Just wait.
As they enter the house, they see strange graffiti scrawled on the wall.
We have to make sure there's nothing in here.
They turn off the light. But curiosity gets the best of them.
You hear that? I think it's on the roof. I think it's on the... What the heck is that? Shoot! Christians.
Let's see that again. Zoomed in and slowed down.
We heard a noise, and that's when we turned and were able to spotlight that creature. But it scared us so much that we just ran. I didn't feel like it wanted to hurt me, but I felt like if it wanted to, it could. And so that was enough to give me a scare.
Although Thomas says he's been back to the property to investigate during daylight hours, he's never encountered the alleged creature again. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt helps us decipher what we just saw.
So this is a video that, for obvious reasons, has gotten a lot of action online. It's very creepy, very reminiscent to a mysterious creature known as the Rake, a hairless humanoid creature standing about 6 feet tall, very cadaverous, gray, pallid skin, deep-set eyes. It's described as being very evil, terrorizing, even murdering people, particularly small children. Back in 1964, there was a gentleman who described this Rake creature as having tormented him and driven him to the point to where he actually had to take his life.
Gerhardt also theorizes that it could be a fabled hairless being from Native American tales.
In the north-central United States, we have tales of the Memagweshi, humanoid types of creatures, small in stature, but with large heads, large eyes, very malevolent and evil, very dangerous to humans.
Gerhardt suggests there may be another Native American myth connected to this. Dating back thousands of years, various American Indian tribes have spoken of extraterrestrial visitors they called star people, who bear a striking resemblance to the gray aliens often described in more modern-day alien abduction claims. Since this video was recorded in the wee hours of the night, whatever we're seeing here seems to have a sixth sense for thriving in darkness. You know, nocturnal predators such as owls, cats, and rodents have developed keen hearing, smell, and dark-adapted vision in order to navigate and hunt at night. To assess the actual threat level from this nocturnal creature, we turn to our experts. Professor of Anatomy and Anthropology, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, weighs in on the Managishi claims.
I think that the most telling disqualification is the size. I mean, these are described consistently as little people. And my experience with indigenous populations here, that can be anything from 5 inches tall to 3 feet tall. But my impression was of a more human size being depicted in the video rather than a very small creature.
Anthropologist Kathy Strain has some insights into the Greys theory.
When people talk about the grays, they usually bring up that there's little ones and there's big ones. And the larger ones have these very long necks and these big, large eyes. And this doesn't really look like that because their eyes are much smaller.
So if it isn't the Managishi or Greys, could it be the fearsome Rake? Meldrum sees some red flags.
One thing that struck me about this video was the very orchestrated feel. I've never heard anyone say, "Be cautious."
Be cautious.
Which seemed extremely contrived. And the only characteristics that really are discernible are that it has a pale, high forehead and rounded skull. That could be a mask. And given the popularity of the rake image, there's no shortage of rake masks online.
Next, we bring in forensic video expert Michael Primo to analyze if this video could, in fact, be an elaborate hoax.
This doesn't appear to be anything that was essentially CGI'd or manufactured. The physical aspects of the scene kind of confirm that this appears to be something within this scene, but whether or not it's a paranormal creature, determinations about that simply can't be made from a forensic perspective.
But Primo isn't satisfied, and it doesn't take him long to find more corroborative evidence online.
Upon further investigating, I found evidence that supported that this particular person that created this video had some sort of IMDb profile, specifically in the genre of science fiction. It appears that this person does this professionally in some capacity to create videos like this. It's pretty clear cut here that these videos have been post-produced and they are fake.
Shoot! Shoot!
Our verdict? We're calling it a hoax. The scripted feel of the video and the human-like size of the creature are the main giveaways. Though Thomas still swears the encounter was real, we can clearly say this isn't a rake. But abandoned sites still remain a hotbed of supernatural activity. So rest assured, we will continue to explore them.